This episode is about some of the lessons I've learned over the years and sharing them with you. This video is meant more for people new to hi-fi rather than the experienced audiophile. Now, since buying systems since the 1970s, I have seen so much change in this hobby, but some things stay the same. So let's get to it. My first tip, and I should mention these tips are in no particular order, but my first tip is to consider what sources you're going to be using. Will you be mostly digital, such as streaming or possibly buying CDs? Will you be more focused on analog, such as records or cassettes? Heck, maybe even reel-to-reel tapes. If you're going to go for physical media, do you have the physical storage space for a collection of records or tapes or CDs? Now, my second tip is what will you be using the system for? Now, I'm more or less a two-channel system guy, so my setup is only for music. But you might want the flexibility of using your system with a TV for home theater or video games, as well as music. That might mean considering an AVR or audio-video receiver. And my third tip is to consider the room your system will be in. Is it a large or small space? Is it a very lively sounding room with a lot of hard reflective surfaces? Because you may need to factor in the need for a special acoustical treatment of some kind, and you're going to have to figure that into your budget, for example. How loud will you listen to your system? But now that I've talked about the what and where of your hi-fi, let's talk about the how. So tip number 4, consider a good pair of headphones, either in addition to or in lieu of speakers. If you wish to avoid things like room treatment or having speakers in the room, or you just need to listen without disturbing others, great sounding headphones can really surpass the sound quality of speakers, costing many times more than the headphones. Tip number 5, budget. Yeah, that's an easy one, right? But budget is a universal issue that we pretty much all have to live with. Yes, you can put together a nice sounding system, a digital system for under $500. And of course, from there, the sky's the limit. But I recommend as beginners, you look at used hi-fi gear, which can provide a lot of value. And speaking of budget, sometimes you might hear that you need to spend 30 to 40% of your budget on speakers and the rest on electronics. Well, this is generally a good rule of thumb. The speakers are the voice of your system, but it's the electronics that makes them sing. So maybe you might want to consider buying gently used speakers of high quality and then put more of your budget towards better electronics. Tip number 6. Let's talk about used components while we're at it. Now, I'm a fan of vintage receivers and integrated amplifiers from the 1970s and early 80s. These offer a lot of value. However, most of the ones for sale are going to need some kind of repair work, such as replacing capacitors, transistors, maybe lights need to be replaced, cleaning the potentiometers. You're most likely going to need to take it to a repair shop, unless, of course, you're skilled enough to make these repairs yourself. Now, components like turntables, cassette decks, reel-to-reel decks, well, they're a bit more of a problem. Tape decks, for example, they all have a tape transport mechanism, and that mechanism may have parts that are simply impossible to source replacement parts for. Motors, heads, tires, you get the idea. There's quite a bit to them. With turntables, the motors may need to be replaced. The electronics may need to be replaced. Some of them even use microprocessors and servos that simply can't be replaced anymore. Tip number 7. Of course, you should audition a potential product before the purchase. Not always possible, right? Make sure the seller has a good return policy and verify they pay return and shipping. Returning heavy speakers on your dime can be really, really expensive. Tip number 8, if you are auditioning the gear at a dealer, take some music that you're familiar with you. Many dealers will have dedicated listening rooms, but remember, those speakers will not sound quite the same at home. Tip number 9, don't shop on specs alone. Some amplifiers and speakers, well, they can measure really, really well, but they could be fatiguing or just not sound right. Remember, trust your ears as to what will work best for you. Tip number 10. Don't let the audio snobs keep you away from high-value audio gear, Chi-Fi, etc. Remember, it's your money and what sounds best for the budget you work with. You can find yourself going down a rabbit hole with things like high-end speaker cables and interconnects and a whole host of high-end stuff. But some of the high-end claims to me are just simply ridiculous for the price they're asking for this stuff. Well, that's my 10 tips from now, and I hope to have more for you later. And of course, please leave your tips and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.